This is my dad, and he loves talking about history. He loves talking about history, economics, or politics. He can talk about that all day. So when I was young, when I was a kid, I mean, I still am a kid, but like when I was like a young kid, like maybe like 6 or 7 years old, he would tell me these stories about ancient India, you know, about the Maharajas, about their empires, about their wealth, and about even how the common people had a pretty decent life. I mean, they didn't have like electricity or running water or anything, but they had fertile land for agriculture, they had access to clean water sources. And then on the other hand, you had Europe, which at the time was this insignificant corner of the world. Like, it didn't really matter a lot in the grand scheme of things, right? There were harsh climates, people were just trying to make ends meet. But then how did this happen? How did the Western European nations colonize almost the entire world? How did Britain, a country in the northeastern Atlantic, take over Australia, a country in the southwest Pacific? And it's not because they had more resources, more capital, more talent, but it's because they had a different mindset. It's because they embraced scientific and technological innovation. It's because they invested in developing new mathematical theories, understanding the laws of physics, and then using those to build better cannons or guns or whatever it might be, or ships. And I see a similar dynamic happening today, where you have all these new startups like Tesla, Uber, Beyond Meat, and they're using these new technologies to make products that are 10 times better, 10 times faster, 10 times cheaper, not just 10%. While on the other hand, you have established companies, and they're not really taking technology seriously. They have data in these different places that aren't talking to each other. They have old hardware, old software. But what these old companies do have is data. And they have tons and tons of it. And they haven't even scratched the surface of how much value this can bring them. But the problem is that most of this data is what we call unstructured data. So structured data is things that you can put in nice tables, they have schemas and labels, and you can make nice graphs and draw conclusions. But unstructured data is things like free-flowing text, or videos, or photos, which can't be categorized properly. And until now, we haven't had the tools to take full advantage of this unstructured data. But now we can with a branch of machine learning called NLP. So NLP is basically looks at text and draws insights from it. So let's take an example. Let's say I own a toy company. I love toys. So let's say I own a toy company, and it's November, I'm setting up for the holiday season, and I want to understand what can I do, how can I make my products better? So traditionally, you might send out some people and have and interview people and be like, what are some things you like, what are some things you didn't like? Or like have people manually look through feedback surveys and figure those things out. But the truth is, all that information is already there in the form of comments on social media, feedback on customer reviews, or even like those telephone calls where people like come in and complain. And you can take all of that data and extract insight from it. The way we do this is first by using something called topic modeling. This is basically where you take all the documents, put it through a model, which is just some math, and then it comes up with some topics, right? So it's like, oh, this specific piece of text is talking about Lego Batman and how the price is okay. Or maybe it's talking about the Barbie doll playhouse and its quality. Then we can take those and put it into a sentiment analysis model. So this looks at the text and it's like, oh, Lego Batman price, bad. So maybe we should like lower the price. People don't like the price. Or Barbie dollhouse, quality, good. Okay, so that we should keep that. And you can end up with some nice graphs like this, right? So it's like, oh, great enjoyment. People love our product, but they don't really like the price. And we implemented this new feature with lights, but like it hasn't gotten great reception. So maybe we should take that out and reduce the price. Simple, right? But there's still one problem: legacy systems. Legacy systems is this broad term where it basically most old companies have outdated IT infrastructure. And this is a big problem because it doesn't support new technologies like machine learning, blockchain, that can create value for their customers and themselves. So like over the past couple of months, I've been doing a lot of research into different industries. And I was talking to a lady at one of Canada's largest banks. She was in the data department. And I was talking to her about, like, how do they organize data? How does it work? What are some problems in the industry? And she was like, oh yeah, there are so many problems. Like, you have data in all these silos, it's not connected, we're using old mainframes. And I'm like, mainframes? And she's like, yeah, do you know those like IBM mainframes? I'm like, IBM mainframes? And when I think of IBM mainframes, this is what I think of. Yes, that is an IBM mainframe, but it's inside a museum. It turns out these things are also inside banks doing complicated processes. That just doesn't make sense to me. And it's not only the hardware, but it's also the software. So there's this programming language called COBOL, which it's about 50 years old. And this is before mobile, before the internet, before the PC. Like, I don't think any of you guys remember those days. You guys weren't even alive during that time.
You were too.
I wasn't either. Facts. But this runs about 70% of processes inside banks. And not only does it not support machine learning, blockchain, all that stuff, but companies are spending millions of dollars just maintaining this hardware. So there's this guy, Sanchez, from Finexa. He owns it's a fintech company. And he says that he had a bank tell him that I don't know how to change my mainframe because I don't know what it does. But it must do something because I'm spending $100 million annually maintaining it. Right? And the truth is that most people, how many of you have heard of COBOL before this talk? Okay, better than I expected. But the truth is that most people in university or wherever they're learning programming, they're not learning COBOL, but so how are you going to find programmers for this? It's sort of like trying to build a skyscraper on sand. It's just not going to work, right? The foundation isn't there. But we have to turn the sand into solid soil, and that's how we're going to make the skyscrapers of our dreams. And I really like this quote from Thomas Wilson, the chief digital officer at Deutsche Bank. He said that you can rather look at technology as a necessary evil and hire a CIO to keep costs down. Or you can see it as a strategic differentiator and hire a CTO or CDO to drive fundamental change in the way technology is being developed and deployed. So it's not about having more resources or having more capital or having more whatever, but it's about changing your mindset. It's about viewing technology as a differentiator and as a way to bring down costs in many other departments. And the rest will follow. Thank you.